Hello. It's been a minute, but I'm back to talk to you about Jesus. And if you don't want to listen to that, then you can leave. But I invite you to stay because God is so good and He has transformed my life for the better these past couple months. And what's crazy is that He can literally do the same for you. He'll do it again. My God can do it again. He'll do it for you. Anyways, without further ado, that all being said, today we are going to talk about Genesis 19. And if you haven't read Genesis 19, you better grab a seatbelt and buckle up because this chapter is crazy. The stuff that happens in this chapter is crazy, and that's all I can say. I mean, I'll also add on that you should go read it in your own time if you haven't. Anyways, we're going to start with Genesis 19, 4 to 8 for a bit of context, okay? Basically, there's this city called Sodom. It's called the title of this chapter is called The Destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, God goes to Abram and is like, hey, there's this city, and the people here are doing some pretty vile things. They are sinning like there's no tomorrow. Like the worst things you could imagine people are doing. And God's like, I'm going to destroy it. I'm going to send fire from heaven. Bam! And Abram's like, oh, well, what if there are some righteous people there? Are you still going to destroy the city? And they kind of go back and forth. And then God's like, okay, I'm going to send some angels, 2 angels, to see if there are some righteous people there. And if there are, I will spare them. So the angels of the Lord go to this city. And when they get in the city, they come across this guy named Lot. Okay? Now, they go to Lot's house for like protection because Lot's like, the people around here are crazy. You need to come to my house and I'll protect you. So Genesis 19, 4 to 8. Before they went to bed, they being the angels of the Lord and Lot, the men of the city of Sodom, both young and old, the whole population, surrounded the house. They called out to Lot and said, where are the men who came to you tonight? Send them out to us so that we can have sex with them. Which is crazy. Lot went out to them at the entrance and shut the door behind him. He said, don't do this evil, my brothers. Look, I've got 2 daughters who haven't been intimate with a man. I'll bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you want to them. That's crazy. Now that is already something that like imagine being a parent and just going, here, take my daughters and you can violate them however, do whatever you want to them. That's crazy. Because then what happens later on is we're gonna jump to Genesis 19:30 to 33. But basically what happens for context and the rest is Lot and his 2 daughters were spared. And the rest of the city was destroyed. And what's crazy to me is that Lot was seen as a righteous person by God and was spared. But it's just so like, I can't imagine, like if he's the most righteous man in the city and he's like telling people to like do whatever you want to my daughters, I don't even want to know what the other people in that city were doing because that's crazy. Anyways, yeah, the city was destroyed. They fled. They went to a new city called Zoar, but they fled into the mountains because Lot was afraid to live in Zoar. He probably had some PTSD because the last city he lived in literally got destroyed by God. So I don't blame him. Instead, Genesis 19:30. Yeah, 30. Instead, he and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. Then the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man in the land to sleep with us, as is the custom of all the land. Come, let us get our father to drink wine so that we can sleep with him and preserve our father's line. So they got their father to drink wine that night, and the firstborn came and slept with her father. He did not know when she lay down or when she got up. Again, that's crazy. I told you you needed a seatbelt, okay? Because this is just, the sexual sin is just, bam, bam, bam. We don't know where to look. And that is kind of like the first thing, that is kind of like the mini revelation that God showed me, was like, sexual sin can be like generational, if that makes sense. Like, for lack of a better word, it can be taught. I mean, like most sin, like you kind of like as a kid, you kind of, you're like, you're watching what everyone's doing and you're kind of like taking notes, like, and like whether it's parental example or like the environment that you're in, I think it depends on how you view sex. And language is a huge thing, and what's normalized in your life is a huge thing. And so I feel like with Lot and his daughters, Lot, like the customs of the time was that, for that time, was that women were there for pleasure and to breed heirs for people. And that, I mean, we're not to even bring that up, but like, just that fathers speak into daughter's worth, okay? That's like a whole thing. When Lot was like, here, take my daughters, do whatever you want with them, that just like, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, it's just so normalized. The sexual sin in this environment, in this city, is so normalized. The behavior is so normalized. The language is so normalized that his daughters later on didn't even think twice about violating their dad in that way to preserve his line. They didn't even think twice about it. It was so normalized and so rooted in them that this is okay and that this is how you should live your life. And it's not. So that's like one thing that kind of stood out to me with that. The second thing that kind of stood out to me in this chapter is how Lot missed an opportunity to have a relationship with God. Because God doesn't always use righteous people for his plan and for his good. Now, Lot was like the most righteous person in Sodom, and God used him for his good, for his plan or whatever. But I feel like Lot in that moment, he missed an opportunity to get to know the heart of the Father, who God is, who is this God. He just was this person that was in this story, which is beautiful, but I think it makes me think about how I don't want to just be used in God's story just to be used. I want to have relationship with him. I don't want to miss out on an opportunity to have a relationship with him. I've been there. I've done that. I tried to do things my way. I tried to live my life without having a relationship with Jesus, and it was not beneficial or fruitful. And so I feel like this story really shows us that don't miss out on the opportunities that God presents you to have a relationship with him. The third thing that stuck out to me is how Lot's daughters relied on themselves and not God to provide them. They relied on themselves and didn't rely on God to provide for them. They took things in their own hands instead of trusting God. Because if you had a relationship with God and you're like in a mountain with your dad for whatever reason, like if I was one of these daughters and I have a relationship with God, I would pray for God to send me a husband. I would pray for God to provide. I would pray for God to fulfill my needs, whatever it is, right? Now, I know at the point of they wanted to preserve their father's line, but that was like, again, like the customs of the land or whatever. But again, I think it just shows that they both didn't have to do that, because the oldest daughter and the youngest daughter both did that, and they both got him drunk. And I think it really just is, it was like this, it kind of just is, sometimes we rely on ourselves to solve our problems and not rely on God. If that makes literally any sense. I don't know. I could just be rambling. But yeah, I don't know. That's it, I think. Does that make any sense? Because this is like, I don't know. So I think my questions are for you and for myself. Like the questions that I got out of this is, what in my life is normalized that shouldn't be normalized? Maybe even more specifically, sex. Like, because, Christians, it's like we're called to, wait until marriage. Sexual sin is very prominent right now. Are you surrounding yourselves with people that are going to hold you accountable? Are you surrounding yourselves, or are you surrounding yourselves with people that are telling you it's okay, you only live once, do what you want? And who are you looking for that advice? Like, who is your example? Because Lot's daughters were, look, not that they went to their dad for advice, but because it was so normalized and instilled in them that this behavior is okay, they like did that. Are you doing that? Or are you looking to God and pursuing him and seeing what he has to say about sexual sin? My second question would be, are you missing an opportunity? Are you letting an opportunity pass to have a relationship with God? And my third question would be, have there been times, or are you currently trying to take matters into your own hand instead of submitting and relying on God to provide for your needs? Anyways, that's kind of that. I hope that made sense. Let me know what you think. Love y'all. Bye.